The last two I want to lump together.
Okay.
Because I think there's reason to. So we have Wisconsin at 215, which is a cut above hopeless. And then we have Purdue firing offensive coordinator Graham Harrell at 190. And the reason I want to lump them together is because Graham Harrell and Wisconsin offensive coordinator Phil Longo are both kind of like air raid guys. And they are both in their second years as offensive coordinators for defensive-minded head coaches. And both are running offenses that aren't effective right now. And one got fired.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, on the list of Michigan fans perked up when Graham Harrell got fired and were like, oh, should we fire Kirk Campbell? And I think Wisconsin fans have perked up. But I think this is a real comparison, Bill. The only thing is that Luke Fickell is a much more established head coach than Ryan Walters. So for Luke Fickell to say, no, we're not doing that. Like we just played. The other thing is Wisconsin just played Bama and USC in their last two games and just got out talented at some skill spots in a way that's like, is anyone surprised by that? And they were ahead at halftime against USC and then just fell apart in the second half. But I don't think it's a bad comparison that like, well, if Purdue did it, should Wisconsin be thinking about it?
I think Wisconsin should be. Like, I absolutely think Luke Fickell would be warranted in making an offensive coordinator change, just because I think there's enough data to tell us this is the wrong course of action for Wisconsin right now, right? So I think it's different because Wisconsin probably thinks, well, maybe we can still find a way to like get to a bowl game and have a winning season, and we'll figure this out after the fact. And Phil Longo also has the shield of their starting quarterback being out for the year too. So
yes,
whatever the offense looks like at least there's that to explain it. Although Purdue lost its top three receivers to the transfer portal from last season and was terrible on offense, but that didn't stop Ryan Walters from making a change. Ryan Walters, who, by the way, said, like, I think our defense, which he's in charge of, is pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and fire the OC when like there's not really anything good going on there. But Ryan Walters can't fire himself. So I think it's fine for Purdue to make the move. I think Wisconsin could, and in my opinion, should make the move. But I probably think that's unlikely given Luke Fickell's track record and stability. But I think they are very similar situations.
Former players very restless at Wisconsin, which makes it really tough. Jack Sitchie, a defensive player from not that long ago, had like a tweet thread. Badger football thoughts. I will attempt to be respectful. The air is in fact not being raided as was promised. No visible identity. I miss controlling the line of scrimmage and being a stout, gapped out defense. Whatever happened to power extra? I don't know what some of those words mean, but so I do it. But like former players are important to the program. In times like this, when former players played for the head coach who was fired, and it's not just a new staff, but a new identity, former players can be super unhelpful. So sometimes former players just want it to be the way it was when they were there, which was good, but not great. And like Jack Sitchie backed off it a tiny little bit. He tweet quoted something from a fan that said, fantastic post, Jack. I believe with Jim Leonard, who a lot of the people wanted to be hired, he was the interim after Paul Chris got fired, they'd be a top 4 to 5 Big Ten team. With Fickell, we aimed higher, and it appears we missed. The question is what's next, because I don't see this season magically turning around. So like, that's the whole point. They aimed higher. They didn't just want to keep being Wisconsin. They wanted to be more, and instead at the moment they're less. So are you willing to suffer in the pursuit of progress, or how quickly do you want to go back to the good old days? And when you played there and sweated there and bled there, you may very quickly want to go back to those good old days that you were a part of that were pretty good. I liked Wisconsin trying. I am very curious to watch the push and pull within the fan base, within the former players. I would imagine it's happening with donors about the quest for progress, and when do you just say, no, let's go back? So that doesn't necessarily mean firing Luke Fickell, but it might mean playing Wisconsin football offensively the way they used to play it. So this is like their fan base is in turmoil right now, because I think they are divided. And I think this whole thing is tearing them apart. And I don't know that I would give up yet. I think I might give it the rest of the season, but it might be a super difficult season if they ride it out.
Yeah, I think it could be. I wouldn't necessarily give up on Luke Fickell either.
But you would give up on Phil Longo. Like I definitely would
I'm
not give up
done.
on
I'm
Luke
done with the
Fickell.
Phil Longo thing. Yeah.
I would not give up on Phil Longo. I would still try. But like, so they've had this happen. It happened in like game 2 and it happened again against USC. The first time it was JJ Watt and the second time it was Melvin Gordon. And it was them tweeting and going nuts about being in the shotgun on 4th and short.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, oh my God. Like, but then it's like, well, if you and I say it or fans say it, it's like, why are they in the shotgun on 4th and half a yard? But when JJ Watt and Melvin Gordon say it, man, like they might have to get under center at the very least on 4th and short.
I would like to see that. If Phil Longo can show me that, maybe I will stop calling
Show me
for him
that.
to get fired. Yeah. Show me a QB sneak. He can stay.
Show me a QB sneak. So then Purdue offensively, they fired Graham Harrell. It was 131 out of 134 in adjusted EPA per play.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Walters, after a terrible loss to Nebraska, said, when you have an atmosphere like we do and a fan base like we do, the alumni community support that is proud of this place, you want to make them proud on game days. The last 2 times we've been out there, we haven't. That's the Notre Dame blowout and falling apart in the second half against Nebraska. It's disappointing. We love it here. This is home. When you let family members down, you get disappointed. If I'm being honest, I've let them down the last 2 weekends. So they're the only program we have in the hundreds at a 190, which is the hopeless category, because this is the conversation of, do they have the right guy?
Yeah. And
they just fired somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder like what Purdue's tolerance to let Ryan Walters try to build something there is too. Because it's also tough. Like Jeff Brom just left, and like Jeff Brom, I know they just lost, is like doing a pretty good job at Louisville, and it's like, well, why can't we have that kind of thing? So that'll be interesting. I don't know that Ryan Walters is necessarily on the hot seat in year 2, but it's a long season, and also Big Ten teams, I think, generally have a different idea of themselves in this new conference landscape. So maybe they'll be a little quicker to pull the trigger in some cases.
Yeah, I like the hire. I like Ryan Walters. I totally get it. I don't know enough to say, like, you know, a season and a month in to say like, it's not the right fit. I think he still very well might be a good football coach. I thought he made good changes this offseason, and it's tough. Like Oklahoma took Deion Burks, man. Texas A&M took Nick Skirton. Like, this is part of this too. Like Purdue is almost, I'm not making fun of Purdue, but like the conversation with the MAC is like, there was a graphic on a MAC game a couple weeks ago, like all the players that transferred out, that they're being rated. They're being rated by Power 5 teams in the portal and NIL. Like Purdue is almost at that level of being rated, Landis. So Ryan Walters like trying to build a program, and they're getting rated. And we talked about, okay, Indiana feels like it's serious about NIL, and that helped draw Kurt Signetti. I don't know enough to know where Purdue is on NIL, but man, they had a lot of good players walk out the door. And now, do you want to get rid of the coach?
Deion Burks went to Oklahoma, but I mentioned they lost their top 3 receivers from last year. The other 2 went to UConn and South Florida. Like,
but
that
what
to me
is that about?
That to me is, this offense stinks. I got to get out of here.
Okay. Or UConn and South Florida have better NIL than Purdue. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, if that's the case too, like both, either one of those answers is not a good answer for Purdue. So
no. Yeah. So, but I don't know that it's a fire the coach as much as like a re-examine where we are in the pecking order here and decide whether we're going to make a commitment or not. I do think it may be, and it may be one of these things where Ryan Walters is a very young coach. Maybe this doesn't work out. He goes back and is a very successful defensive coordinator for somebody. And then in 6 years, he gets another shot and is better for all the lessons he learned here. But tough spot. Unanimous pick to be last in the Big Ten, and they're proving that right. I thought they would be better than that, and they clearly are not. So, you know, but it's one of those things. If you're firing other people, then it's like you're not above getting fired either. So,
right.
You know, anything's on the table for Purdue. But I think like in the hopeless range of numbers is fair for them to be there at 190.
Yeah, I think so too.